lung cancer killed more than 150,000 people last year. That's more than prostate, breast, colon, and pancreatic cancers combined. But a breakthrough drug from Cuba may change that. The drug is called cimavax. The Cubans developed it in the 1990s, but it still isn't available in the United States, at least not yet. To understand why, we need to review the history between the two countries. In the 1950s, the Cuban people were suffering. High unemployment and a lack of basic services like clean water turned them against President Fulgencio Batista. Batista leaned on the U.S. for support. So, when the communist Fidel Castro took power in 1959, relations with the United States were strained. In 1961, the U.S. helped a rebel attack at the Bay of Pigs. It failed, and Cuba cut ties with the U.S. A year later, President Kennedy ordered a full trade embargo with Cuba. That embargo remained in place for more than 50 years. In 2015, President Obama began normalizing relations with Cuba, and one of the first products the island nation is sharing with the Americans is cimavax. Cimavax was created solely by Cuban scientists in the early 1990s. Cut off from the rest of Western medicine, Cuba was forced to develop its own treatments and medications. In this bubble, a potential miracle was born. Since 1995, cimavax has undergone 5 peer-reviewed studies, and in all 5, patients showed better results than the control group. Cimavax is inexpensive to produce, which is critical in Cuba, where the per capita GDP is about $6,800, making Cuba one of the poorest countries in the world. Conversely, the United States per capita GDP tops $57,000, spending $9,400 per year on every man, woman, and child for health care. That's the 3rd highest total in the world and 10 times what the Cubans spend. So money is not an obstacle to bringing cimavax to America, but politics still might be.
So help me God.
Although President Obama moved to normalize relations with Cuba in 2015, the new Trump administration hasn't given clear guidance on how it plans to deal with Cuba. That's the most critical part of our marketing plan. We need to lobby the Trump administration to keep the door open for cimavax. Part of that plan should involve a public relations campaign to pressure the White House and Congress to keep hope alive, because at its core, the promise of cimavax is hope. Hope for more time. Hope for a cure. Hope for an end to cancer. Using the strategies of segmentation, targeting, and positioning, we will attack Congress with 2 arguments. First, cancer is an emotional issue, and for certain members of Congress, it's extremely personal because cancer has touched them directly. The so-called Cancer Caucus is made up of more than 40 members, Republicans and Democrats, men and women. We will lobby them personally to continue to push for additional funding for cimavax research. We will also target their districts with television, radio, and social media campaigns urging constituents to contact their representative. Plus, we will stage events in their districts to generate news coverage. For members who are looking for a more practical argument, we'll emphasize the estimated $200 billion spent every year fighting this killer, and how inexpensive cimavax can be to produce. Additionally, because the vaccine is a product of the Cuban government, we could form a strategic alliance with the Cubans, not selling it to any one drug company, but instead mass producing and distributing it as part of a government program. We'll take our argument directly to the American people through a series of television commercials, social media campaigns, coordinated medical reports in various news programs, and repeated appearances on talk radio call-in shows. Through these efforts, the American people will demand cimavax be given every opportunity to succeed.